Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something, well, absolutely foundational. A core skill, really. Whether you're deep in academia trying to figure out a complex business issue, or even just trying to understand, I don't know, human behavior.
Right.
We are zeroing in on the research question.
The starting point for everything.
Exactly. Think of it like the starting gun, the question you have to get right before you can even hope to find an answer.
It really is the bedrock, isn't it? If that question isn't clear, if it isn't specific, well-defined, then everything that follows, no matter how much work you put in, it's probably going to miss the mark.
Complete.
You just can't find a relevant answer if you don't know exactly what you're asking in the first place.
Precisely. And the source we're diving into today, it's an academic text, but it gives us a fantastic, really structured look at this whole process.
It's quite methodical.
It is. It shows it's not just about asking any old question, but the right question.
Yeah.
And, interestingly, that there are different kinds of right questions depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Different tools for different jobs, basically.
Exactly. So our mission here is to sort of unpack this step-by-step process, understand the different types of questions you might run into or, need to create yourself, and really get why having that clear question is the solid foundation for everything else. Think of this as your shortcut to getting a handle on this really vital piece of the research puzzle.
And it's a skill that pays off way beyond just formal research, wouldn't you say? Learning to ask precise questions just sharpens your thinking, period.
Absolutely. Okay, let's unpack it then. The source really doesn't waste any time driving home just how critical this research question is.
No messing around.
None. It says pretty clearly that the success of any academic study really hinges directly on formulating the right question.
It's that direct link.
And the point it makes it's a strong one is that finding the right answer, impossible, unless you first ask the right question.
What I found insightful there is how it frames the question, not just as, the opening line, but as the thing that actively shapes the whole investigation.
Right.
It dictates your methods, your data, your analysis, everything. If your question is flawed, maybe too big, too small, or just pointed in the wrong direction, the results you get, even if they're statistically sound, they won't actually tell you what you needed to know. It's like the North Star for the whole journey.
So it's not just being curious. You have to translate their curiosity into something that can actually be answered properly.
Effectively, yes.
And the source gives us a really practical 6-step process for doing that, for formulating that question.
Yeah, it's very logical. Step 1 is identifying the field. This starts ideally with something you're genuinely interested in. The source uses consumer behavior as an example. Your passion gets you started, but then right away, you need to engage with what's already known. You have to do a preliminary literature review in that area.
To see what's out there.
Exactly, to understand what's known and, crucially, where the gaps are. Where hasn't the research gone yet?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You can't add something new if you don't know the current conversation.
Right.
So step 2 builds on that. Literature review.
Deepening the dive.
Right. You're now systematically looking at theories, concepts, previous studies, really hunting for those spots that haven't been fully explored or where maybe there's some disagreement.
This is where you spot the potential opening for your original contribution.
Okay.
And that flows straight into step 3, problem definition.
Right.
Based on those gaps or unanswered questions you found, you define a specific problem within your topic. And this problem needs to matter somehow academically, maybe socially, or even commercially.
So it has to be significant.
Yeah, something worth figuring out, like, a business asking, why are our customer retention rates dropping? That's a problem you need to define clearly before you even phrase the research question itself.
Okay, got it. So once you've nailed down that specific problem, step 4 is where you actually craft the question, framing the question.
This is the art of it, really.
Translating that problem into something clear, specific, and importantly, measurable.
Yes.
The source suggests using that classic journalist toolkit, the who, what, why, how, when, where as a guide, just to make sure you've covered the bases for clarity.
It's a good checklist. Timeless, really. Then step 5 adds that layer of academic sort of grounding linked to theoretical framework.
Okay.
Your question shouldn't just float out there on its own. It needs to be connected to or informed by relevant theories and concepts in your field.
So it shows it's part of a larger body of knowledge.
Precisely. It shows your work isn't just some random query, but it's actually building on established understanding, gives it context and depth.
Right. And then finally, step 6, the practical reality check. Testability.
Can you actually do it?
Yeah. Can this question actually be answered using data and methods that are, available? This means steering clear of questions that are just way too big. What's the meaning of life? Sort of thing.
Right.
Or questions so incredibly narrow that the answer doesn't really tell you anything useful. It needs to be manageable.
And what's really important to remember, and the source kind of implies this throughout, is that this whole process, it's often iterative.
Not just a straight line.
Exactly. You might go through all 6 steps, draft a question, and then realize at the testability stage, oh, wait, I can't actually measure that.
So you loop back.
You might have to loop back to framing the question, maybe even back to defining the problem again. It's rarely just one pass.
That iterative idea feels really key. And it kind of leads us into the next point, which is that not all research questions are aiming for the same outcome.
Right.
The source breaks down distinct types of questions. Understanding these helps you match your question to your actual goal.
Yeah, knowing these types is crucial. It helps you align the question with the kind of study you need to run and the kind of answer you're looking for.
Okay, so what are they?
The first type is exploratory. This is for when you're stepping into new territory, something not well understood.
Charting the unknown.
Pretty much. You're exploring, trying to get some initial insights. The example they give is, how does social media influence consumer brand preferences? You're just starting to map out that connection.
Okay, so if you were a brand trying to suss out if, say, TikTok even matters to your customers, you'd start there.
Exactly. The next type is descriptive. This is more about painting a detailed picture of something as it currently exists.
Describing the what is.
Precisely. You're not necessarily hunting for causes yet, just documenting characteristics, how often something happens, how it's distributed. The example. What is the impact of trust on consumer loyalty in online shopping?
So you're describing the nature of that impact. Maybe measuring how trust levels relate to repeat buys.
Exactly that. It's about characterizing something. Then we get to explanatory questions.
Okay, digging deeper now.
Yeah, these are aiming to uncover cause and effect. You want to know why something is happening?
The why behind the what's.
Their example, what factors influence consumers' preferences for sustainable products? Here, you're looking for the drivers. Is it price, personal values, peer pressure? What's causing that preference?
Got it. So exploratory to see what's there, descriptive to detail it, explanatory to figure out the why. What's the last one?
The final type is comparative. Pretty straightforward. You're comparing 2 or more groups or situations based on some characteristic.
Like A versus B.
Exactly. The example given is, how do online shopping behaviors differ among consumers from different generations? You're explicitly comparing, say, Gen Z versus baby boomers on how they shop online.
That structure, exploratory, descriptive, explanatory, comparative, that's incredibly useful, helps you really pinpoint what kind of question you need.
Definitely.
And the source also offers some practical tips that kind of echo the process points but add some extra useful advice.
Yeah, these feel like wisdom gained from actually doing research.
Right. Tip 1 is clarify your research area. Back to starting with genuine interest. If you're fascinated by sustainable products, go there. The initial thought might be broad, like, how does social media influence consumer behavior?
Which is huge.
Exactly. Which leads right into tip 2. Be specific and focused. This is where they really hammer home that broad questions are just too hard to answer well. You have to narrow down.
That's the challenge.
And they take that social media example and refine it perfectly. How do Instagram influencers affect young adults' purchasing decisions? Now, that is something you can actually design a study around.
That jump from broad to specific is often the toughest hurdle, especially for people starting out.
I bet. Tip 3 is pose answerable and measurable questions. This circles back to testability.
Can you actually get data?
Right. Can you collect information to answer it, the example?
Yeah.
What is the effect of user reviews on e-commerce platforms, on sales volume? Both reviews and sales volume. Those are things you can likely measure.
Quantifiable things. Definitely. Yeah. Tip 4, which we've kind of touched on, is conduct a literature review. Don't blow this off.
Crucial.
Before you finalize your question, you must know what work has already been done. So if you're interested in digital ads, your first question should be something like, what do we already know about how digital ads impact brand loyalty? Find that baseline first.
Find the existing conversation before you try to join it.
Exactly. And tip 5, linking back to that iterative idea we mentioned, is revise your research question. Your first draft is just that, a draft. Be ready to rework it.
It's not set in stone.
Not at all. And the source points out that getting feedback from peers, mentors, experts, that's invaluable during revision. It's not weakness. It shows you're being rigorous.
That focus on revision feels really important. It's not just about finding a question, but shaping it until it's the best possible question for what you want to find out. Speaking of shaping questions for clarity, the source introduces this framework called PICOTT.
Ah, yes, PICTT. It's a very structured way to think about your question, often used in health sciences, but honestly, it's useful anywhere you need precision.
It forces you to define the key bits up front.
Absolutely, makes it systematic.
Okay, let's break down the letters. P is for population problem.
Who or what are you actually studying? Is it a specific age group, a type of company, a particular issue?
Got it. I is for intervention exposure.
Right. What's the specific factor you're examining? It could be a new teaching method, a marketing campaign, exposure to, I don't know, certain news articles, a behavior like contactless payments.
The thing you're interested in the effect of.
Exactly. C is for comparison. What are you comparing that intervention or population against? Is it a control group? A different demographic? Maybe comparing before versus after an event like the pandemic.
Makes sense. O is for outcome.
What effect are you actually measuring? This is your dependent variable. It could be changes in attitudes, behaviors, sales, test scores, patient recovery times, whatever you expect to change based on the intervention.
The result you're looking for. And the first T is for time.
Yeah, the time frame. Are you looking at immediate effects, changes over a few months, long-term impact over years? Setting the duration helps define the scope.
And the second T.
Type of study. This specifies your methodology. Is it going to be an experiment, an observational study, qualitative interviews, a quantitative survey? This links the question directly to how you'll answer it.
Wow, putting PICTT all together. It really forces a high level of detail into the question.
It really does.
The source gives a great example, feels very relevant. Is there a difference in adult consumer attitudes toward online shopping that emerged during the pandemic compared to the post-pandemic period, based on quantitative analysis?
And you can see PICT right in there.
Yeah, let's map it. P is?
Adult consumers.
Okay. I, the intervention exposure is?
The online shopping attitudes that emerged during the pandemic, that's the specific thing of interest.
Right. C, the comparison.
Compared to the post-pandemic period, that's your benchmark.
Oh, the outcome.
The difference in attitudes toward online shopping, that's what's being measured.
First T, time.
Defined by the two periods, during the pandemic versus post-pandemic.
And the second T, type of study.
Clearly stated, based on quantitative analysis.
That framework just makes it crystal clear what the study is about, who it involves, the conditions, the measurement. Takes away so much guesswork.
It's a powerful tool. Forces clarity in your own thinking just as much as it helps communicate your research to others.
Definitely. And then finally, the source gives us a little peek into how these carefully built research questions actually show up in academic writing.
Right, how they're woven into the paper.
Yeah, how they're used in different sections to sort of signpost the study's purpose and findings.
It's all about guiding the reader. So early on, stating the objective, you might see something like, the aim of this study is to examine the dynamics related to, and then your research question is inserted here.
Or when you formally state the question itself, it could be, this study addresses the following research question, your question. Or maybe the central question of the research is your question. Simple and direct.
And when you're setting up your hypotheses, your testable predictions, you link them right back. Based on the research question, your question, the following hypotheses have been developed. Shows the logical flow.
Makes sense. And then later, when presenting the results,
you connect them straight back to the question you asked. In this study, the following findings were identified based on the research question, your question, followed by a summary of the key results.
Keeps it focused.
Exactly. And then wrapping up in the conclusion, you revisit it again. The results obtained based on the research question. Your question indicates some general finding or inference, or maybe the findings, provides significant insights regarding the topic within the framework of the research question, your question.
It really underlines how that question isn't just a one-off thing you write at the beginning. It's the thread that runs through the entire research story.
Absolutely.
So, stepping back from this deep dive, it's clear the research question is way more than just a starting point. It's really the non-negotiable foundation for any kind of meaningful inquiry. We've walked through the steps to build one, looked at the different types for different goals, picked up some practical tips for clarity and focus.
And that PICOTT framework for precision.
Right. All adding up to show that a well-put-together question is really the engine of discovery.
It really is. It directs your energy, sharpens your focus, defines what you can actually hope to learn, Doesn't matter if it's a PhD thesis or just trying to solve a knotty problem at work.
And here's a final thought, maybe something to chew on. Think about that whole iterative process we talked about.
The looping back.
Yeah, especially the emphasis on revising the question. The source listed it as a key tip. Could it be that the actual act of refining, reshaping, maybe wrestling with your question multiple times? Could that be more important for uncovering deep insights than the initial spark of an idea?
That's interesting.
How does that discipline, that process of questioning the question itself, fundamentally change the journey towards discovery?
That's a provocative point. It suggests real insight might come less from just finding an answer and more from that relentless effort to ask the best possible question framed in the clearest, most effective way.
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the power of asking the right questions.